So let me do a little 101 on
Please.
crime in the D.C. district. I don't think most Americans realize that Washington, D.C., unlike every place else in the country, the federal government has jurisdiction on all crime. That's not true any place other than federal jurisdictions, Indian reservations, but not in most places in America. 90 to 95% of all crime that's prosecuted in this country never touches the federal system. Now, the irony of this is that the federal government is in charge of not only prosecuting crime in the district, but also manning the U.S. Attorney's Office, which prosecutes all crime in the D.C. district, and the courthouse that handles these. And here's what's weird. The federal government is the one who has emptied out the U.S. Attorney's Office that is there to actually prosecute crime. They're the ones that have cut the D.C. budget by $1 billion. It is the only criminal justice system in the country that is completely controlled by budget and by personnel that are federal. So what do? They take 500 federal police officers whose job it is to actually go after drug trafficking, actually could make an impact on crime in the district, and they have them doing car checks. I mean, it is ludicrous. And what they're doing, bringing down crime is complicated. And it takes a lot of stuff happening at once. What they're doing is not going to have any impact on the crime levels in D.C. Manning up the prosecutor's office, getting judges in place, letting the drug investigators that are federal do their work on drug trafficking, that would make a difference. What they're doing now, you know what it is? It is a dangerous distraction from Epstein, and it's all show. It is not substantive at all.
But Claire, this is where I want to go, Simone, for a second here and quote myself from yesterday. I know, Claire, you're the biggest Chiefs fan on this network. Is this the play that Donald Trump wants to run, knowing what the defense is going to be, right? So all of these stops that are caught on camera are photo ops. This is a comfort zone for him. So just politically, when it comes to what he's doing and why and what to do when you know that your opponent is trying to do this, knowing that you're going to react the way you always have, how do you manage this, knowing it's ridiculous, but also exactly what he wants?
Well, the bottom line is Donald Trump and his folks are the ones that are impacting crime in the district. And now they own it completely and totally. As I said, most Americans didn't realize the feds already owned crime in D.C. Unlike most cities in America, unlike St. Louis or Kansas City or Chicago or L.A., they own it in D.C. So now we have a job, not only to make sure Americans understand that and to understand that this is just a show, we have a job to make sure that we show that he's not successful in the methods he's using. And I think that will be a tale. I mean, he's picking on something, Pablo, that he really can't do much about the way he's doing it. There's ways to do it, but not the way he's doing it.
Well, look. I think you're right, Claire, but here's the thing. And Mary and I were just kind of talking about this before the segment got started. Donald Trump is banking on people not going to the details that you just went to.
Correct.
He is banking on people not going to page 2. They're just reading the headline. This is actually not about crime, Mary. This is about control. Yet good faith people all over this country and in this city are having debates about, well, whose fault is the crime this and crime that? Donald Trump is putting, as we all came to work today, we drove past these checkpoints in many different respects. There are tanks outside Union Station as we speak. This is crazy. Yet, I think he might get away with it because you know what? I talked to a number of people today. Some Democrats are going to vote to extend this with Republicans. Mark my words.
Well, crime is a problem in the city. Yes, it's
everywhere
dropping.
in America.
It's at a 30-year low here. It's down something like 28% over last year. So it's hard to think there's an emergency that justified this. There is crime. On a per capita basis, violent crime is high here. What's happening with this surge is not directed at that. It's directed, as you all have been indicating, at sort of the photo opportunity, right? These arrests that are being made, as I'm reading about them, they're for petty things. Yes, some people have warrants, but you don't need to have this type of surge to go execute on warrants. Some of the crimes had to do with firearms, but a lot of the things are petty and DUIs and things like that. Not that DUIs are not important, but that's not what we're talking about when we're talking about violent crime. And I think it's also worth pointing out the hypocrisy, right? This surge of resources and law enforcement in D.C. right now, when the biggest mob I saw, the only time you could possibly have described any part of D.C. in the words that Donald Trump used on Monday at his press conference were on January 6th of 2021, where we actually had a mob attacking police officers violently, harming them physically. And that was described by Donald Trump as peaceful protesters. What he's now describing as sort of carnage throughout the city is just not the reality. And I will also note there has been arrest and charges brought against somebody for throwing a sandwich at police officers. Not that I think that is okay.
I mean, they're charging it as a felony, like, to be very clear. Right. Like, Claire, they taking the subway offenses and I'm not talking about the metro, I'm talking about the sandwich. They're taking them very seriously. Yeah. I will just throw this on the table. And, Alicia, I don't know if you want to take it first, but I do think that Donald Trump, we should not lose focus that this is a pretext to make it just commonplace for military personnel to be in the cities all over this country. And he is going to places where he's whipping up old stuff that's happened before, like saying these mayors are incompetent. All the mayors that he's talking about happen to be black. The cities need to be controlled. They need to be tamed. It's out of control. The cities he's talking about happen to be majority people of color, majority black. I don't hear him talking about the businesses and the restaurants. It's Restaurant Week next week in D.C. The way he's talking, people should leave their homes. It's just, it is not about crime. It's about control.
It's all of his greatest hits with a new hit single. I want you, Claire McCaskill, to listen to the way that James Comer is now beginning to take the predicate that Donald Trump has set and open the aperture. Take a listen.
We're going to support doing this in other cities if it works out in Washington, D.C. And again, it's unfortunate, but we spend a lot on our military. Our military has been in many countries around the world for the past 2 decades, walking the streets, trying to reduce crime in other countries. We need to focus on the big cities in America now, and that's what the president's doing.
Okay, so one, this idea that if it works in Washington, D.C., then let's see where else we can do it, this normalization of using military force in American cities. And two, Claire, this argument that Comer's making, which is part of this America First argument, which is we've been spending all of our military resources abroad. What we really need to be doing is spending them at home. It's absurd, and it's not what Americans voted for.
Yeah, and America is not going to like the idea that this administration is turning its military against Americans. Now, nobody wants to help or protect anybody who commits crime in this country. But he's going to run into a lot more problems going to other cities. He's going to run into prosecutors who he needs that are state prosecutors. I mean, people don't realize this. The federal government has to work at getting jurisdiction for things like rape and murder. It doesn't naturally come to them. 911 calls don't go to the feds. They go to state police. They go to the city police. They go to local prosecutors. They're the ones that are handling all this crime now. And he's not going to be able to blow into these communities where he doesn't have federal jurisdiction and do his will. And besides that, the people he's pulling to do this in D.C. right now, I got to say it again, these are people that have real jobs fighting crime.
Yes.
Not photo ops. They are supposed to be going after international drug cartels that are feeding the streets with drugs that causes a lot of the violence. Trust me when I tell you, people that are shot in this country, it's usually because they're around violent people who are either stealing to get drugs or dealing drugs. So let's let the feds work on drug crime, and let's let the local prosecutors do their job. And while they're at it, why don't they do something about the 90-some prosecutors and investigators that are not in the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C. because they were chased out by Ed Martin, and now Jean Pirro has a skeleton of an office. They could file all these small charges that Mary's talking about. They got nobody to prosecute them. They don't have judges to hear them. So this is such a joke. Can you tell it infuriates me? It infuriates
I can tell
me.
it infuriates you.